I still remember the smell of the garage that day. Old wood, motor oil, and dust. The kind of scent that clings to your shirt and makes you sneeze hours later. My father had passed away 2 weeks earlier, and my sister Claire and I had been left with the job of sorting through decades of his life. I wasn't ready for it, but the bills were piling up, and the lawyer wanted the place cleared so we could put the house on the market. The garage was Dad's territory. He was a mechanic by trade, and even after retiring, he spent most of his time out there, fixing lawnmowers, building birdhouses, or tinkering with things nobody else would bother with. His workbench was still cluttered with tools, nuts, bolts, and a coffee mug that hadn't been touched in months. Claire was in the kitchen sorting through old photographs while I took the garage duty. I was pulling boxes off shelves when my hand hit something unusual. Behind a stack of dusty car manuals was a small metal lockbox. It wasn't heavy enough to hold tools but had a weight that made me curious. There was no key in sight. I could have gone inside and asked Claire to help me look for it, but something about the box made me want to keep it to myself for a moment. I set it on the bench, grabbed a screwdriver, and pried it open. Inside was money. Bundles of $100 bills, tightly wrapped with rubber bands, stacked neatly in rows. My heart jumped into my throat. I counted quickly. At least 50 grand, maybe more. For a moment, I just stared at it, my hands shaking. Dad had never mentioned anything about savings like this. As far as we knew, he lived on his pension and a little bit of side work. Claire and I had both been struggling financially for years, me with my failing business, her with mounting medical bills for her son. If this money had been there all along, I slid the box shut. My mind started racing. Technically, it was part of Dad's estate. Legally, Claire would get half. But Claire didn't know about it, and I was the one who found it. What if I just kept it? Nobody would ever know. That thought didn't sit comfortably at first, but then I started rationalizing. I'd been the one helping Dad the most in his last years, driving him to appointments, fixing things around the house. Claire visited when she could, but she lived an hour away. I told myself I deserved this. Besides, I could use the money to finally pay off my debts, get my business back on its feet, maybe even start fresh somewhere new. I carried the box quietly to my truck and tucked it behind the seat, covering it with an old blanket. I'd deal with it later. The rest of the day, I worked through the garage, pretending nothing was wrong. But every time Claire popped in to check on me, I felt my stomach twist. She was smiling, reminiscing about Dad, holding up little trinkets she found. She had no idea. That night, I couldn't sleep. The box was in my closet now, hidden behind a pile of clothes. I kept thinking about Dad. Why had he hidden that money? Where had it come from? Part of me feared it was something shady, but Dad wasn't that kind of man. Still, why hide it from us? The next morning, Claire called. She had found Dad's old diary in a drawer and wanted me to read a particular entry from 10 years ago. I drove over, and she handed me the small, leather-bound book. The entry was about a customer who had left a broken-down truck at Dad's shop and never returned for it. Inside the glove compartment, Dad had found an envelope full of cash. He'd tried to track the man down, but never could. So he decided to keep it not for himself, but for a rainy day, for the family. I froze. Claire smiled sadly. Dad always said he wanted to make sure we were taken care of someday. I guess this was his way of doing it. Shame we never found whatever he was talking about. I felt heat creeping up my neck. She didn't know. She was looking right at me. And she didn't know. I nodded, forced a smile, and changed the subject. That night, I stared at the box again. $50,000. Enough to change my life. Enough to make Claire's life easier too. But if I told her now, she'd know I'd been hiding it. She'd never trust me again. For the next week, I lived with the weight of the box pressing on me like a physical burden. I went to work, I smiled at neighbors, but inside I was a storm. I even started making plans, paying off my business loan, buying a better truck, maybe moving to Florida, like I'd always dreamed. But every time I thought about spending it, I heard my father's voice in my head. One evening, I stopped by Claire's house unannounced. Her little boy, Ethan, was on the couch with a blanket, coughing. She looked exhausted. "His medicine's so expensive," she said, almost apologetically. "Insurance barely covers anything." I nodded, my throat tightening. That night, I drove home and pulled the box out. I sat there staring at it for what felt like hours. Finally, I picked up my phone and called Claire. "I found something in Dad's garage," I said quietly. "You should come over." When she arrived, I put the box on the table and opened it in front of her. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she didn't speak. Then tears filled her eyes. "Dad, he really did think of us," she whispered. I told her the truth well, most of it. I didn't tell her I'd hidden it for a week, just that I'd found it tucked away. We agreed to split it evenly, just like Dad would have wanted. As she left that night, she hugged me tightly. "You could have just kept it," she said softly. "But you didn't. That means more to me than the money ever could." I stood in the doorway watching her drive away, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The money was important, sure. But in that moment, I realized something my father probably knew all along. Trust is worth more than anything you can lock in a box.